guys, this is Black Scout Survival, and today we're following up with the Urban Survival series, and today's subject will be on social engineering. I got Chance Sanders with me. He's also a fellow urban survivalist, and we're going to kind of talk about some tactics and some countermeasures for social engineering. And social engineering, if you don't know, it's a way of psychological manipulation to kind of basically get what you want or hack your way into something or get whatever you need. And there's a few tools that people use to make this happen. Kevin Mitnick is one of the most world-renowned hackers, and most of his techniques was through social engineering, not actually, coding or whatever that kind of hacking stuff is. I don't even know, but he did it by social engineering.
Yeah. Have you read Kevin's book?
I've read through it.
I read most of Ghosts in the Wires, and it was really cool. And pretty much, my background is in security, and any security system that you have, as long as there's a human element, then that human element can be exploited and you can gain access. So that's always the linchpin of any security system, no matter what it is the human element, whether it's the people that respond to an alarm at your house or even in some multinational corporation. As long as there's human beings that are getting paid, look at the TSA, getting paid $10 an hour to do something, there's always that ability to overcome that.
That's right. And there's techniques to use to do this. People have the natural instinct to help others. So a lot of people will use social engineering to by trying to get help from people. Think about people getting kidnapped, women getting kidnapped. I think who was the Ted Bundy? He was an injured man, and the woman would come over there and help him, and then he would kidnap. So be on the lookout for somebody that's trying to get you off by yourself and is needing help.
And a lot of people, there's a really good book called The Gift of Fear.
That's right.
And in that book, they talk about our instincts that we have that tells us that there's danger or that you're in a dangerous situation. But socially, we've been programmed, especially women, not exclusively, but if somebody does something nice for you, then you owe them, or you don't want to be impolite. Whereas a guy, we'll tell somebody to screw off, I don't want it, leave me alone, and be much more forceful about it. But oftentimes women will feel like they have to reciprocate if you open the door for them, and oh man, thank you, that's nice. And then the next step would be, oh hey, do you mind if I use your phone? Or could you help me with this? And we see it all the time with panhandlers and people come up to you wanting money, and they've got it down to a T. And it's amazing how they can look at you, size you up, see what kind of person you are, approach you for money, and depending on how you respond, they immediately shut you off and go to the next target because they know not to waste their time with you. And that's something from our point of view of resisting the social engineering and not getting trapped. It's okay to be rude. It's better to be rude than be dead.
That's right, and that's a good point because in the on the Gray Man video I did about urban survival, I said that you don't want to look so gray man that you are perceived to be weak and a criminal opportunist can take advantage of you.
Yeah.
Because if you like a weak individual, predators prey on weak individuals.
Yeah.
You do want to kind of have a sense of, hey, you don't want to mess with me. You know what I mean? But you don't want to go so far as wearing, a 5'11" tuxedo either,
Yeah.
So those things are going to come into play as well.
And one thing I like to mention on that, anytime you have a group of people that associate with each other and associate with an activity, and those people start wearing the same type of clothing, it becomes a uniform. It doesn't matter what it is. If everybody that likes fly fishing dresses a certain way, you associate them with that activity. So it wouldn't matter if gun people all wore 5'11" or if gun people all wore Dickie coveralls. Once the magazine starts printing pictures of people doing an activity in a certain style of clothing, that becomes the uniform. It doesn't have to be multicam, it can be any color.
But if you see Realtree, it's a hunter.
Exactly, you get associated with that. So even if you think that you're blending in, if the things you wear are associated with that activity, then you're not really blending in. If you go, and I was reading an article about this in the IT world, you can tell, the people that have been involved in it can tell what a person's job is in the IT world based on how they dressed Whether it was wearing really ratty clothes meant you were really successful. Look at Zuckerberg, and he's never wearing more than like a hoodie and some jeans. It's pretty much the idea with that was that you were so focused on your job you didn't have time to worry about how you looked. You were so into what you were doing, and that perception was that you were good at your job. Now, the problem is people start mimicking that, and it's not indicative of what they do. They're trying to look a part. So the whole gray man and camouflage and what's camouflage and what isn't is it bears a lot of scrutiny, and you've got to really look at what you're wearing.
And very location dependent.
Exactly. What my uniform, if I'm walking around in a three-piece suit, is excellent if I'm downtown in, some type of high-rise or industrial building or something of that nature. Wall Street. But if I'm walking around out in the country, that's going to get me a lot of weird looks.
Yeah, exactly.
So, anyway, that's the end of that sermon.
and so social engineering can take a few. You can use it in a urban survival situation, but you also need to know how to defend it. Like vanity is one way that people use, and it's like, sex appeal. Let me talk about that first. Sex appeal. They'll use Facebook accounts that have a good-looking person, male or female, and then they'll start talking to you, and then you start divulging information because you may want some a company from this individual that's not even real. So you need to be real careful with your social media stuff, because you could also be a predator. We've seen that, especially even like when you say you're going out of town on vacation or whatnot on your Facebook. Everybody knows it. And most home burglaries during vacations are from people you know.
And it's amazing that people, we have all this stuff with the government spying and whatnot, but people give up so much information for free. It's really not even a hard thing to do. And there's certain steps and things that, we use social media for promoting of businesses and talking and stuff, and a lot of that stuff is innocent. But you do have to be careful on who you friend, who sees what you put up, and how you go about that. It's kind of the virtual example of the old KGB honey trap, where you would get somebody involved with a female and in a room that they didn't know was bugged. And what you would do is you would take that individual and show them, hey, look, we have footage of you doing this. Then we need some small bit of information. It wasn't anything big. It was, give us just this little thing. And oftentimes those people would do that. Well, then they get photographed passing this little bit of information. It's now not only do we have you in a compromising situation with a female, we all have you divulging state secrets. And then they were in. And that was, not going to be taken to that extreme necessarily on Facebook, but it's all the same. It's the same thing. It just keeps getting updated with more.
All right, kind of to follow up what you're saying, there's a book by Christopher Hagney, The Art of Social Engineering, Social Engineering, the Art of Human Hacking, and in there he talks about a certain scenario where he uses social engineering to gain entrance into this very high-profile IT information technology company. And basically what he did, he found out through social media who the particular big dog was of that corporation. He followed him, found out where he ate lunch, and he wound up getting in line behind him to pay for the meal. Struck up conversation. The guy gave him his card, and they were just chatting. He said, well, I'm about to go on vacation, going on a cruise or whatever. So that guy then made up fake business cards. Christopher Hagney made up fake business cards, went to the place when he knew the guy was going to be on the cruise, and said, hey, I'm coming to see, such and such. He had an appointment set up with me. And so the secretary's like, oh, he's on a vacation. Oh, he told me he was going on that cruise. Mm-hmm. So at that point in time, she's like,
established a rapport.
She knew, she's like, well, they know each other. So she started giving information. He wound up, dropping a virus in the computer, stuck it in a USB, and shut down the whole server system there. So that's, things you have to be careful. Just because somebody knows a little bit of intel, doesn't mean that you need to divulge more.
And it's funny because on a small scale, you think, well, that's some big, caper type of a thing, and it is. When I'm standing in line at a grocery store, I see people, everybody has these little store cards that you swipe and get your discount for that particular store, but they also have your telephone number associated with it. And this one particular time, there's a young lady in front of me, and I think she might have been on the phone or whatever. Well, she just rattles off her cell phone number to the cashier. And then as she was paying, I got a really good shot of her driver's license, enough to see her first and last name and where she was from. So with those bits of information, I could have impersonated somebody that knew her. I could have said, hey, you know, let's say Susie for the sake of argument. Hey, Susie, you know, blah, blah, blah. Or called her on the phone and said, yeah, you know, we met. And people don't want to admit that they don't know you.
Or say that you're with the bank, you know,
or
say,
anything.
hey, you know, Susie's such and such, you know, and this is such and such at the bank, because I'm sure you've probably seen her debit card at the same time too.
It's,
you know, criminal opportunists will pick up on these things. They, you know, this is how they make their living, you know, is by conning people. You know, another social engineering method is called tailgating, and you probably have seen it in the movies a bazillion times, James Bond and all that kind of stuff. Somebody will walk through the door and of a secured door, and a person will just wait there for them to open it up, and they just walk in, act like, you know, mainly act like you're supposed to be there. It's going to be the ticket. So just walk in, and it's our human reaction to be kind enough to hold the door open for someone. So you can, you know, get into a secured building just by doing that.
There's I think it was in the movie Spy Game where Robert Redford told Brad Pitt that most of the time all you needed was a pocket knife, a stick of gum, and a smile.
That's right.
To get in where you need. And there's a lot of truth to that. Cigarettes, people that smoke, it's a natural way of building a rapport with someone. You know,
it's like a brotherhood almost.
It is. It gives you an opportunity to strike up a conversation, because that's always the hardest thing. Because people that don't know you, when you approach them, they're looking at you in either what does this person want from me, or what can I get from them. And when you, hey, do you have a light? You know, that's the icebreaker. That's the interaction, and that starts that rapport. Because if that person's a smoker, then you're like, wow, because you know, smoking is looked down upon nowadays. So here's my brother. We're both smokers. We both are participating in this this activity that's not really looked great upon in society these days. And it's just one of the little small things.
I have another story about social engineering. This subdivision, they, you know, built a bunch of new homes, and when people moved in, they said that they needed a piece of the dog's hair. If they owned a dog in the neighborhood, they needed a piece of the dog's hair, because they were going to keep DNA. And if they found any poop out in the neighborhood, they were going to check it for DNA, and you'd be fined for it. Which isn't going to happen. But this was a social, and I read this in a social engineering blog or website, and this was just a tactic they used. They weren't going to really do that, but you know, people were scared, like, oh man, I got to put my dog's poop up, so I'm going to get a $500 fine because they got my dog's DNA. You know, these are just tactics, manipulation. And you know, you have to be careful, because a lot of people today, especially today, people, I mean, it seems like society's degrading, and there's a lot more criminal opportunists or con people out there. So you got to be real careful of that. The other thing is that you need to, you know, try to practice some of these things. If you're a single guy trying to pick up chicks at the, you know, bar or whatever, use these social engineering techniques that, you know, try to pick up chicks or whatever it is, you know. Use these, you know, practice your skills in case there comes a time that you may be in an urban escape and evasion situation, you know, urban survival situation, you need help or you need access to something, you manipulate your way into it.
It's much easier. We talked in previous videos and stuff about utilizing cars or having to commandeer or steal a vehicle or whatever. It's much easier to convince someone to give you a ride than it is to do any of the other methods. And coming from a background, I've had experience with being on the streets and being homeless, and actually having to use these techniques. I didn't know what they were at the time, but they were the ways that I stayed alive. And it's amazing the different people you learn, who you can approach, who you don't want to approach, and what is that person's motivation? What are you gonna have to show them to get them to help you? And some people are just, they're not gonna budge either way. They don't have time for you, and you learn how to pick out those people and move on to the next one. And from an escape and evasion point of view, and like you said, this is a really extreme type of thing of you needing to use this, but it is one that you can practice. And the more you practice it to learn how to do it, the better you are prepared to prevent someone from doing it to you.
That's right. Well, I think that pretty much wraps it up. We could probably talk for another hour about social engineering, but check out the book Social Engineering: Art of Human Hacking. Check out Kevin Metnick's. I think he has like two or three
Yeah,
books.
2 or 3 books.
Check those out, and there's a lot of stuff online, and maybe we'll discuss it further in the future, but hopefully, you don't get social engineered.
Yeah.
But thanks, Chance, and check him out, check out his channel, and check out blackscoutswell.com for more tips and tutorials. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe, and as always, thanks for watching.
Thanks, guys.